Go for the 2.com, and with the Week 12 selections, going to be very ACC and SEC heavy, 3 apiece, along with a Big 12 and a Pac 12 selection. So a total of 8 picks in this video. But if you want all the top 25 videos and breakdowns, tune into College Football Full Circle, Sirius Channel 159, Sirius Channel 159. 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. We get you prepared for the weekend. Go through the whole slate. We got action this week starting on Tuesday, tomorrow, Wednesday as well, Thursday night action, Friday. A great weekend for week number 12. And then obviously Saturday morning, college football today, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern on sportsgrid.com, also on Sirius Channel 159, and then we also take you through for the first half of action in-game live, 12 to 2 p.m. Eastern. So you get me for 5 hours on Sirius Channel 159 every Saturday, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern. Let's start in the ACC. Big battles taking place. We'll talk about that marquee battle, Pittsburgh and Virginia. Brennan Armstrong most likely will play. Bronco Mendenhall came out, didn't give an update in his press conference today, but most likely he will be under center Saturday when they take on the Pitt Panthers in Heinz Field. Should be cold, should be damp. You'd think that would favor Pittsburgh in this matchup with the high-flying offense of Kenny Pickett. They stepped up yet again on Thursday night, covered the number against North Carolina, laid 6.5. They opened up a big lead, 23-7, held on 30-23 in overtime. They have a couple of extra days of preparation. On the flip side, you saw Virginia not start Brennan Armstrong, got blown out from an offensive defensive perspective by a more blue-collar team in Notre Dame. Now they go on the road, and Virginia right now needs to win this ball game to have any shot to win the Coastal. 2 games left. Virginia needs to win out. They also need to have Pittsburgh lose one of their games if they defeat them this coming Saturday, last game of the year. So when you break this game down, it comes down to 2 factors. Which quarterback do you believe in more, Kenny Pickett or Brennan Armstrong? And which coach do you feel will have his team prepared for this battle in order to cover this heavy number in terms of 14.5. When you look at Virginia just on the road, they really haven't stepped up outside of dominating performance in terms of come from behind fashion, where they trailed in the 4th quarter to Louisville and did pick up that victory 34-33. Virginia is a much better home team than they are on the road, but I still think their offense matches up against the secondary of Pittsburgh. You're talking about Brennan Armstrong. He's a dynamic dual-threat quarterback. He hurt his rib against BYU, but the extra weeks off in preparation, he should be at least 85 to 90% healed in this ballgame. You're talking about big play wide receivers for Virginia. Joey Kemp, Keaton Thompson, Jelani Woods, the tight end. They have size, they have athleticism, and Bronco Mendenhall does a fantastic job in terms of implementing a game plan to put the ball in terms of his playmakers in one-on-one type of situations. They also incorporate a lot of RPO with Brennan Armstrong and Keaton Thompson, utilizing the Wildcat type of formation. Listen, at the end of the day, Virginia might not win this ball game, but I think they definitely keep it well within the 14.5-point number right here in New Jersey. Look for Virginia to possibly strike the upset. I think Bronco Mendenhall will have his team prepared in this type of spot over Pat Narduzzi. So getting 14.5 on the road, I think they're a live dog this coming weekend. It's going to be very dog heavy in terms of the ACC. Another heavy dog is Georgia Tech. Technically not a conference game, but they go on the road to face Notre Dame. Remember, Notre Dame did not cover this game last year. This was the game Notre Dame was laying a huge number. I think it was 18.5, 19.5 by game time. They had a first and goal on the 1, trying to run out the clock, and Ian Book was trying to push his running back into the end zone to cover that number. You look at Georgia Tech, they're out of bowl contention. Jeff Sims and that offense have played very well. They're averaging well over 200 passing yards per game. They're rushing for around 180 yards on the ground. Weakness of the defense happens to be in the secondary, giving up 274 passing yards per game. But you look at this offense in back-to-back games now against Boston College, a very good defense, and against Miami on the road, they've averaged 30 points per game. They also pushed Virginia to the limit. They were out of that ball game much in the second half, but fought, lost that ball game by 8 points, 48-40. This is a battle-tested team. It doesn't show in terms of the record, but they fight hard for 4 quarters with Jeff Collins. They're not going to a bowl game, going on the road in South Bend. This is their Super Bowl. This line opened up at 15.5. It's already up to 17.5 in favor of Notre Dame, who needs to win out. Notre Dame wins, but I do feel that Georgia Tech covers the 17.5 point number. Also keep in mind, when you just look at Notre Dame from a defensive perspective, a couple of quarterbacks that they faced that were mobile. Des Ridder in Cincinnati, they lost that matchup outright. Week 1 against Florida State, they had Mackenzie Milton that came in, but also Jordan Travis made some plays on the ground with his legs. I think Jeff Sims can do that in this ballgame to allow his team to cover the 17.5 point number Saturday afternoon in South Bend. Florida State's on the road to face Boston College. Boston College coming off an 11-point win over Georgia Tech. Like I mentioned, they were short underdogs in that, catching about 1.5 in that ball game in Atlanta. They stepped up. Djokovic and that offense were able to move the football. Now they come back home. This is a defense in Boston College, only giving up 159 passing yards per game, but more importantly, 30% on third down conversions. But on the flip side, you have a Florida State team that was on life support in the second half of that matchup, jumped out to a 17-0 lead against Miami. They fought from behind. They were down 28-20 and found a way to gut that victory out over Miami in that ballgame by 3 points. Now they go on the road. They've won 2 straight in the series. The last time they played was back in 2019, but I think the speed of Florida State's the difference. Also, you look at back-to-back games for Florida State in terms of the front seven. They held both Miami and NC State under 100 yards rushing. That's a gutty effort. I think if they do that against Boston College and force Phil Djokovic and that offense into predictable third down situations, they're going to have an opportunity to pull this game out. Listen, they need to win both games against Boston College and Florida just to be even and become bowl eligible. I think they get the outright victory in Chestnut Hill this coming Saturday afternoon. Should be a very good game, but the speed, to me, of Florida State's the difference. The ability for Jordan Travis to throw potentially over the top of that defense in Boston College, I think, is the difference. Jordan Travis with 274 last week against Miami. I think it carries through. They got that victory off their back in terms of being able to knock off the Hurricanes in 5 straight. They were on life support in the fourth quarter. That momentum carries through to Chestnut Hill this coming Saturday. In the SEC, marquee battle takes place in Tuscaloosa. We have Arkansas, back-to-back road games on the road to face Alabama. Alabama covered the 52.5 point number against New Mexico State. They started fast. Bryce Young with 4 touchdowns plus stepped up, dominating offense and defensive performance over New Mexico State in that ballgame. On the flip side, you have Arkansas and KJ Jefferson down 10-3 at half. They gutted out 13-13, at the end of regulation, force a critical turnover against Nussmeier, the freshman that came in against LSU, kicked a field goal, 16-13, and they take home the trophy for LSU. That was an LSU team that really needed to win that ball game to become bowl eligible. They stepped up, they gave it their best effort, but in the end, it was the defensive front that allowed Arkansas to come from behind in that ball game. KJ Jefferson made some plays with his arm in the second half, and I think this team carries through in terms of a momentum perspective. Back-to-back road games. I understand it's the second-ranked Alabama Crimson Tide, but you're talking about a team in Sam Pittman in Arkansas, 7-3 overall. They're already bowl eligible. They're playing loose right now, and I think they come into this ball game. The ability to run the football, to me, will be the difference to cover this number against Alabama. We saw Alabama struggle earlier in the year against Florida with a mobile quarterback, Emory Jones, and Anthony Richardson. KJ Jefferson is mobile. He didn't get it done against the front seven of Georgia, but I think he could get it done on the road in Tuscaloosa. I think look for Arkansas to get Alabama into a lower scoring game, ugly, methodical, to keep Bryce Young on the sidelines. I think they can do it. From a defensive perspective, I like some of the things that Sam Pittman and that defense are doing. They're +5 in turnover margin, holding opposing offenses to 30% on third down conversions, one of the top third down defenses in all of college football, top 15 in the country, and more importantly, only allowing about 132 rushing yards per game. Back end playing very well. They're experienced. They could force Bryce Young to methodically work down the field if they limit chunk plays in this ball game. I think they cover this 21.5 point number easy on the road in Tuscaloosa. Two teams coming off disappointing losses last week. Let's start with Auburn. I mean, you had a 28-3 lead over Miss State. I'm very happy they surrendered the lead because I did pick Mississippi State last week. They came from behind. Will Rogers threw for 400 yards on that defense in the second half. Bo Nix did get injured. He did throw for 272 through the air, 2 touchdowns, but they can't get the running game going, Auburn. This is an Auburn offense that is inconsistent at critical times. Defense did not make adjustments in the second half, and they lost that ball game convincingly to Mike Leach and the crew. Now they go on the road. TJ Finley gets the start for Bo Nix, who broke his ankle. And now, what is the emotional mindset of Auburn on the road in this ball game? This is a South Carolina team that's coming off a disappointing loss as a 1.5 point favorite against Missouri. They lost that ball game 31-28. But this was a South Carolina team that only rushed for 57 yards on one of the worst defenses in terms of run support in the Missouri Tigers. Entering that ball game, Missouri was allowing well over 240 rushing yards per game. They held South Carolina to 57 rushing yards. That put their quarterback into long third down situations. You look at South Carolina and Beamer right now. They're on their 5th quarterback. Zeb Nolan got hurt. Luke Doty got hurt. They're on their 5th string quarterback right now in terms of South Carolina, fighting for bowl contention without the ability to run the football, only averaging around 3.5 yards per carry. Even though they're playing at home, this is still a lethal offense with TJ Finley at the helm. And more importantly, you have one of the best running backs in all of college football, in Tank Bigsby, that was contained last week by a very solid defensive front seven in the Mississippi State Bulldogs. They go on the road. They're laying 7.5. And you look at just third down conversions. Auburn still converting 43% of third down conversions, allowing opposing offenses to convert 36% of the time. On the flip side, you have South Carolina converting 36% of their third down opportunities, but that defense is allowing 43% to opposing offenses. That's the difference. Even though South Carolina is going to be an electric atmosphere in Williams-Brice, I do feel that Auburn is the better team. They win this ball game convincingly, might even have a step up in terms of TJ Finley being a more athletic, better pure pocket passer than Bo Nix. I think they cover the 7.5 point number and get ready for Alabama on the road Saturday night in Williams-Brice. Another big battle takes place in Columbia. You have Missouri that we just talked about that held South Carolina in check. They're playing a little bit better from a defensive perspective in terms of this matchup heading into Florida. From a defensive rush standpoint, the last 2 games, 57 against South Carolina, 132 the week before. Now they're fighting for bowl contention, 5-5 overall. On the flip side, you have a Florida team that just unbelievable in terms of that first half. They allowed 45 points to Samford. They had a fight from behind, put up a 70 spot to win that ball game, 70-56. Amazing in terms of Dan Mullen and that crew. They go on the road. They've won 2 straight against the Missouri Tigers in dominating fashion. They've won those 2 straight games by an average margin of victory of 20.5 points per game. When I break this game down, I can only look to Florida here. As bad as they're playing, they're -8 in turnover margin, which I don't like, but they're still averaging 5.9 yards per carry. going up against a defense that, even though they're playing a little bit better in back-to-back weeks, they haven't seen a mobile quarterback like Emory Jones. And don't be surprised if Anthony Richardson shows his face in this ballgame. Dan Mullen said that it's Emory Jones's job to lose, but Anthony Richardson is 100%. He's back to full form. They're going to utilize him, in my opinion, in terms of RPOs in this ballgame. The athleticism of Florida, to me, is the difference. If Missouri can't stop the run, they won't put it in the air. It's going to be a run fest for the Florida Gators. Might be a little cold. It doesn't matter. I think Florida runs away with a double-digit win on the road in Columbia. I just think this is a bad matchup for the Missouri Tigers in this ballgame. You look at a rivalry game in terms of the Big 12. Texas, you lost to KU. You've lost 5 straight games for the first time in program history since 1956. You're playing West Virginia that got blown out on the road as a 6.5-point dog by Kansas State and Skylar Thompson. You look at the series perspective. Texas has won 2 straight in the series by 7.5 points per game. Picked up this victory last year, 17-13. Jarrett Dagey and that offense were in striking distance. They could not close the door and lost that ball game in the fourth quarter. But that was a very good defensive effort by the West Virginia Mountaineers. Now they come back home. They've played much better at home than they have on the road. And on the flip side, you have a Texas team that is absolutely pathetic on the road or on a neutral field site. Just 1-4 this year. They've lost 5 straight, and yet they're only catching 2.5 points in this ball game. I know Sark hasn't done a good job, but they have way too much talent to lose this ball game. This game is going to come down to 2 factors. Which team could run the football more effectively, and which quarterback is more consistent? Do you believe in the West Virginia offense that struggled? They pulled Jarrett Dagey for the backup. He's more of a mobile quarterback. They don't have consistency now in the run game. They lost their identity. They're turning the football over, West Virginia. And on the flip side, you have a Texas team that can possibly put up at least 45 points in this ball game. Playing on the road, they get away from the negativity of that KU loss. They step up and make a statement. They might start slow, but in the end, I think they win this ball game outright. Texas over West Virginia. Both teams right now are fighting. They need to win out just to become bowl eligible. Which team do you buy into more? Texas has way too much talent. I'm buying into the Longhorns, especially the fact that they're on the road catching 2.5. Like them to win this ball game outright Saturday afternoon in Morgantown. Last ball game is USC did not play last week due to the COVID situation with Cal. On the flip side, you had Chip Kelly and UCLA open up a dominating effort, 24 points over Carl Durrell in Colorado. You look at USC, they've won 2 straight. This team has looked pathetic this year, but this is a rivalry game. If you're Jackson Dart, Keaton Slovis, you show some pride. You step up and you knock off UCLA in this ball game. The extra week of preparation, to me, will be the difference. Even though it's an interim staff, I still have to buy into USC in this spot, playing at home. Give me USC outright over UCLA. Those are all the selections for week number 10. Stay with me all week long. College football full circle, 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern, every day, Monday through Friday. Sirius Channel 159, and College Football Today, 9 to 12, and then 12 to 2 this Saturday. We'll see you then. Have a great week, everyone.